in these rare video moments. This is Jeff. And this is not a snarf and sniff video. It's not an ashes or a set or noodles. We are here. And man, the guy left his garage open. Shit. A lot of things going on in the world today. I'm going to make a video about Iran. It's going to reflect against the Social Democrats, even some Republicans, misinformation, the so-called war, they call it. Now, everybody's calling it a forever war. There's no such thing as a forever war. The last forever war was probably the 100 Years' War. These Z-Geners and these millennials, their heads are so screwed up that they're putting labels on things that don't exist. Obama spent 5 months and about 12 days dropping bombs on Syria. 25,000 bombs, to be exact. On his own creation, him and Hillary created ISIS as the immediate freedom fighters to fight against Assad. And guess what they end up doing? They end up taking over almost 1/2 of Syria and about 1/3 of Iraq, and they end up murdering over 100,000 people. So, these Democrat dummies like to forget all that and make people believe that it never happened, which it did. And nobody has brought Obama and Hillary to accountable for such acts. So now, because it's Trump, who he himself is kind of a bit of a dingback, Mr. Bait and Switch, is going into his, second, third month of bombing of Iran. And then people on the internet are making this false claim about us being short of munitions, which we're not, because roughly about 7,621 pieces of munitions was dropped as scatter bombs and missiles against over 10,000 targets. Now, the numbers is kind of weird, but that's the rough estimate, types of ordnance, I guess they called it. And 10,000 bombs is not shortage. That's insanity. According to the Department of Defense, we still have 19 of our 20 Moabs. We got 11 carrier task forces are filled with weapons and bombs. We still have over 5,000 to 6,000 Tomahawks. And you have to remember that because this is not 1944 or 45, we don't do carpet bombings anymore. Laser guided systems, put your bomb right on target. So if there's 10,000 targets that got hit, that means 10,000 ordnance was used to blow them the living hell up. That's just the numbers, that's just the way it is, that's the way technology is. So we are not low on munitions. I don't know who put that false narrative out there. I don't know. And back in 2002, I pulled guard duty in the second largest munitions base in the United States. And it's over 20 miles diameter with over 600 two-story bunkers filled with munitions filled. We had over 1,000 outside pits stacked with 500-pound and 1,000-pound bombs. Even with Obama dropping 25,000 bombs on Syria and even the Iraq war, didn't even put a big dent in all that, because we're still making munitions every day, all day, every year. So that's a falsehood. Big falsehood. And it doesn't take a year to make a single Tomahawk. That's a bunch of bullshit too. You just go in, all right, put it together, and that's it. How did we go back in time from making sophisticated equipment? That's just, it doesn't make sense to me. Again, these people are, they're delusional. They don't even know what they're doing. And that's what they're saying. They're just completely batshit out there. If it's true, if a carrier task force is running out of ammo, they just trade out with another carrier task force and they start bombing for 2 to 3 months. You know, then when they run out, then you bring another task force in. You know, and there's also 4 submarines that are on standby, and those particular classes submarines carry up to 120 Tomahawk missiles apiece. What are we doing numbers here? Since when did these dumb reporters are sitting there becoming experts? You know, they just sit there and just ask questions and suddenly build a story around a single question. Excuse me, I'm from CNN News. Are we short on munitions? No. Okay, she writes it down, and then she completely, because her editors and her publishers and all that stuff are so left-leaning, they said, well, lie about it, say yes. And then they just make their stories up and they throw it on the internet, and then you got every goofball in the world believing it. And then you say it enough times, it becomes gospel, then it becomes truth when it's not. And it's just the way it is. It's the way the human mind works, and it's the way these idiots work, the dopamine in the brains and all this other bullshit. You know, they want to believe, you know, and then they just fuel their self-made outrage, you know, especially when they have no idea what the hell they're talking about. So that's basically what's going on. So also, Iran is not winning anything. Their leadership is hiding in bunkers. Winners do not hide in bunkers. Number 2, the Straits is patrolled by the United States Navy. It's open. Ships are being escorted by the United States Navy. Notice that all the attacks on ships are against ships bringing or supplying in and out of the Straits. Have you noticed that? But yet, not a single missile or drone is even attempted to attack an American frigate or carrier or any Navy vessels. And I'm going to tell you why. First of all, you idiot asses are going, oh, they're beating us. They're not doing nothing because they don't control the Straits. We control it. The United States Navy controls the Straits. When was the last time you saw 100 drones and 100 missiles being thrown from Iran? Months. That means they are about 90% depleted of their supplies, and plus over 1,200 launchers has been reported destroyed. Okay, so Google this. And this is what Iran did. They Googled it, or they asked their strongest advisors, well, what do we do? Well, there's a frigate out there. Do we hit it? And then the leadership, with whatever brains they can manage to summons up, with all of them combined to make it up to maybe a 90, they said, you realize what would happen if we was to drop a missile on top of a Navy frigate and it gets through? Google this. What happens if Iran struck a Navy vessel with a missile? complete and total retaliation and devastation is the answer, even from the left-leaning Google and from all the left-leaning AIs. The consensus is, according to what Iran believes, they so much as even scratch the paint on an American warship, they are going to be retaliated like they would never believe. And they know this. Basically is what these friggin' fools are doing, is they're counting on the American people and all the pressure to back off. Well, it's not happening. The Americans continue to blockade, and they blockade the shit out of their Iranian ports. Their ships can't move. They can't bring in supplies. They're on an economic crush that is just crushing their country. It's just being crushed. The inflation is 4 to 5 times higher in that country for food and water. The people are suffering, and yet the Iranians are holding on. Just like what Germany did towards the end of World War II, just like what Japan did, they held on. They kept scratching and scraping, and that's what's happening to the Iranians. No Americans are dying. Iranians are dying. They're getting blown up. Targets are still being hit. Then the threat of, well, maybe it might be time to put Iran in the dark and blow up all their fucking power plants. Just blow them up. Civilians will be without power. They'll have to break out their generators, their solar panels, and they're going to have to pray. That doesn't sound like winners to me. They have no Navy. Their above sea Navy is now below the sea Navy. They have no Air Force. They have no helicopters. They've all been blown up. They lost 1,200 plus launchers, destroyed, gone. All their barracks has been hit. All their headquarters been hit. Last reports of over 8,000 to 9,000 Iranian military dead and another 20 plus thousand wounded. Probably even maimed. Some of them probably for life. And they're like, we're winning. How? From the port inward, you're pretty much surrounded. The only way you can get supplies is over land or on the trails or whatever. And then if we choose to, we could just send in 8-10 warthogs or whatever and just sit there and shoot them all up. Shoot up their overland convoys. That's not hard to do. We're experts at it. We've been doing that since the Gulf War. No problem. We've been doing it since Vietnam. Drop bombs on it. No problem. So, these liberal friggin' dipshits, they're throwing out this misinformation. They're bots. These are these scumbags who wants to be in this fucking country but shit on it. These are from these so-called, what I call the Starbucks experts. These are the same bunch of fucking dick whackers that sit at Starbucks with their free internet, and all they do is just talk down and talk shit about the very country that they live in, because they're either getting paid or they're trolls. They hate their lives. They got nothing going on with their lives. They're living off of SSI for some sort of bullshit mental health issue, which of course is what a lot of us older people call is extreme laziness. They don't want to work, so what they do is they do their SSI thing and they get some sort of doctor to pretend that they got some sort of bipolar issue, and they turn around and get a few $100 a fucking month. They use the Medicare and Medi-Cal, and they just turn around and suck the tit of the system. They're nothing but scabs on society. That's all they are. It's just scabs. And that's all they do is just sit there and talk shit. Kind of like Jeremiah. Jeremiah's like that. I got mental health issues. And what does he do? He gets on the internet and he talks shit about the United States. He talks shit about its people. He gets to talk shit about everything. And he tries to freaking sound like he's smart, which he's not. And Places like the Odyssey is completely filled with these fucking clowns. Completely filled with them. Yeah, they go in there and almost all of them's gone SSI, and all of them are anti-Trump, anti-religion, anti-everything, and they just sit there and play Dungeons and Dragons, and they make up all these weird fantasy stuff because they want to make everybody believe that they're crazy. So these are the kind of idiots that's actually got jobs in journalism. There's no such thing as yellow journalism anymore. There's no such thing. All this is propaganda and lies. And Joseph Goebbels would be very, very happy. Joseph Goebbels would be saying, look what I did. He's the guy who propaganded everything, and he's ruined. Basically, with his techniques, they're doing the same thing to the countries and to the world today. The man is immortal, and that's just the way it is. And 90% of you freaking clowns don't even know who Joseph Goebbels is. Look at that. Wow. He almost ran that dude down because he ran right out in front of a car. What an idiot. So, bottom line is, we're not losing no war. Iran is pretty much isolated and blocked. Whatever Trump's doing, he's just trolling the shit out of them. That's what he's doing. Every day that there's no talks, he just trolls. That's what he does. So the more that he trolls them and more delays, the more the economic crunch crushes Iran. More that they cannot do shit. That could be kind of an interesting playbook. Because he pretty much, it's quite possible he's got them by the ass and there's nothing they can do about it. Which is pretty awesome. Right? What the fuck? Okay. I don't know what she's doing. Yeah, it's loud out here. Whew. She practically had no damn clothes on. Alrighty. So anyway, like I was saying, Iran's not winning. They're still blockading. They said no deal, no deal, no deal. So the longer they wait, the more blockade they get, more their economy goes into the shithole. More people are going to get angry, and they're not going to even be angry at the United States. They're angry at their own friggin' leadership. They're trying to keep the regime from collapsing. It's just like Putin. Putin's doing the same thing. The straw man of Russia, not the strong man of Russia. The straw man. And he is sitting in his bunkers with his family. And he's claiming he's winning the war in the Ukraine. Again, like I said at the beginning of this video, winners don't sit in bunkers. That's just the bottom line. They don't sit in bunkers. Adolf thought he was winning, and he was sitting in bunkers. As the entire world collapsed around him, he still says we can win, we can win, we can win, and he's sitting in bunkers. So Putin's sitting in bunkers, saying we will win, we will win, we will win. Meanwhile, his economy is total garbage, just like what happened to Iran, because they're constantly getting bombed on their oil fields, and their so-called Wildberries warehouses are now burning up. He's conscripting a military. All right, now we all know that in history, conscription doesn't really work too well. They said, well, what about Russia in World War II? That's all they did. That particular conscription happened because the United States Lend-Lease allowed them to do their conscription. That's what you people out there failed to realize. We brought in tons of supplies, 300,000 trucks, 1 million blankets, 5,000 aircraft, 4,000 tanks, fuel, food, boots, all that stuff allowed them to hold on long enough and use those very trucks to move their factories out of the range of the medium bombers the Germans had. And they did a massive, massive buildup of conscription. Meanwhile, they used all those tanks we gave them to hold the front line back throughout the winter. Then when they conscripted enough idiots, which is roughly less than a month of training, and they did them by the hundreds of thousands, and then they went on to their big so-called red wave. Without the United States Lend-Lease, the Russians would have a German flag above the Kremlin. It's just the way it is. So Putin now says, we're going to conscript. And yet they are either getting out of the country, sneaking across borders and being arrested if they get caught, shot, or surrender once they get to the Ukraine. They just throw their hands up and say, I'm not doing this. I hate to say it, Putin, old buddy, but you're done. You're done. Your entire professional military has been ground down to nothing. You threw your Spetsnaz in there on that airport raid, and you had almost the entire unit wiped out. Well, we still got our parachute regiments. Taking conscripts and then put them in jump school. That doesn't make them elite, guys. And then you send them out to go die. They get 2 or 3 jumps in, you guys give them jump wings, send them out, they go die. They don't even do a proper PT test. They just throw them out there to die. Give them a sense of pride of being elite, which they're not. Even females can make it through jump school. I don't know where you guys are going with that, so I don't know. Yeah, so Putin, you're done. The Iranians, they're done. North Korea is pretty much isolated. Instead of spending money on their own people, they're spending money on making nuclear missiles. The Chinese, of course, they want to sell to everybody. They're pretty much doing what corrupt arms did back in the 17 and 1800s. It's a German company that sold weapons to everybody. Everybody. They sold weapons to everybody. They didn't care. As long as they got paid, they just sent it out there. I mean, they gave weapons to the Poles, the Russians, the Swedes, besides the Germans themselves. There was even some Americans over here in the early 1800s that had corrupt-made cannons. And they don't care as long as they get paid, right? And basically, that's doing what China did. Just get paid. And believe it or not, it was corrupt cannons that during the Norwegian campaign sank the Blucher, the German heavy cruiser, and killed over 1,000 Germans. It was corrupt-made guns that did it.